Digital trade is increasingly important, and comprises both digitally ordered trade, in goods and services cross-border electronic commerce e-commerce, and digitally delivered trade services, delivered internationally through the internet or other networks. However, countries vary greatly in their readiness for digital trade. If the share of developing countries, particularly the least developed countries, in world trade is to increase, as envisaged in the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, actions are needed to strengthen their capacity to benefit from digital trade. The coronavirus disease COVID-19 pandemic has made this need even more urgent. What is digital trade, and why does it matter? In 2020, digital trade was defined by 3 international organizations as all trade, that is digitally ordered and/or digitally delivered. Under this definition, digitally delivered trade is international transactions that are delivered remotely in an electronic format, using computer networks, and digitally ordered trade is the international sale or purchase of a good or service, conducted over computer networks by methods specifically designed for the purpose of receiving or placing orders. These developments have accelerated a pre-existing trend, namely, that digitally deliverable services are becoming an increasingly important element of services trade. From 2005 to 2019, global exports of digitally deliverable services grew at an average nominal rate of 12% per year, and at a rate of as much as 21% in Asia. The share of digitally deliverable services in total global services exports had already increased from 45% in 2005 to 52% in 2019. The largest component of digitally deliverable services is the broad and varied category other business services, followed by telecommunications, computer and information services. Services types have been identified as digitally deliverable, also referred to as potentially ICT-enabled. Yet the share of services that is actually delivered digitally is not routinely distinguished. UNCTAD is working with countries to measure this through surveys. Initial results obtained from Costa Rica, India and Thailand suggest that between 80 and 99% of services that can be delivered through ICT networks are actually delivered in this manner. Digitally ordered trade is a subset of e-commerce. In 2020, 24% of firms received orders online, and over 40% of firms placed orders online. Uptake varies by firm size. On average, more than twice the share of large firms sell online, compared with small firms. With regard to consumers, an estimated 1.5 billion people, or 27% of the global population aged 15 and older, shopped online in 2019. Among the 27 member countries of OECD, for which data are available, the share of people shopping online increased by 5.2 percentage points in 2020. This was the greatest increase since records began in 2005. In terms of economic value, total e-commerce is estimated to have reached $26.7 trillion globally in 2019, including both domestic and international transactions. The availability of reliable statistics on the share of cross-border e-commerce is limited. Cross-border business-to-consumer transactions are estimated to have accounted for around $440 billion of total business-to-consumer e-commerce sales, at $4.9 trillion. In 2020, around 1 in 4 online shoppers made cross-border purchases. However, business-to-business transactions account for the bulk 82% of e-commerce. Yet the share that is international, and therefore forms part of digital trade, has not yet been determined. There is a need to agree on methods for the measurement of cross-border e-commerce, and to broaden the number of countries that produce such statistics. At the same time, statistics on digitally delivered services trade, as opposed to digitally deliverable services, also need to be further developed and more widely compiled in order to arrive at complete and robust figures for digital trade. To support evidence-based policymaking, growth in digital trade is highly unequal. Digitally deliverable services still account for a significantly lower share of exports in the least developed countries, and in Africa and Latin America, and the Caribbean than in other parts of the world. Similarly, while over half the population in high-income countries shopped online in 2019, this figure was only 2% in low-income countries. Less digitalized countries are at a disadvantage in leveraging e-commerce. They are also less able to benefit from the resilience of digitally deliverable services trade in response to shocks, such as the pandemic and therefore likely to experience more extreme declines in export earnings and economic growth, more generally, as digital ordering and digital delivery have become increasingly critical to accessing markets in many parts of the world. Those lacking the ability to trade digitally risk falling further behind economically. Strengthening the capacity of developing countries to benefit from digital trade. Many developing countries need to improve capacities to engage in and benefit from digital trade. Policymakers face a formidable task in keeping up with the rapid pace of technological change and dealing with the general scarcity of data and high degree of uncertainty. Ensuring more inclusive outcomes from digital trade requires a holistic and coordinated approach across governments and with other stakeholders to formulating and implementing relevant policies, as well as global development assistance. UNCTAD support for harnessing and measuring digital trade. The UNCTAD-led A-Trade for All initiative aims to improve the ability of developing countries, particularly the least developed countries, to use and benefit from e-commerce and digital trade. An extension of this initiative, the A-Trade Readiness Assessments Program works with developing countries to identify concrete actions in key policy areas to strengthen their ability to benefit from digital trade. As noted in this policy brief, better statistics are key to understanding the situation in a country with respect to digital trade, and in assessing the need for and the impacts of policy interventions with regard to the digital delivery of trade. Statistics currently focus on services that are digitally deliverable. However, the share that is actually digitally delivered can vary significantly. UNCTAD can support countries in applying a questionnaire and methodology for compiling statistics on digitally delivered trade with regard to digitally ordered trade. A minority of countries produce e-commerce value estimates, and even fewer break this down into domestic and international components. The UNCTAD Working Group on Measuring E-commerce and the Digital Economy is well positioned to prepare a stock-taking of current approaches to measuring e-commerce among member states and to identify best practices for wider adoption.